Hey guys, this is WSC here, and I am with Mr. IoT himself. Welcome, Mr. IoT. Thank you for talking to me. How's it going?
Will, I talk to you anytime, all the time. It's great to be here. And I don't know if you know this, but I really actually have a hard time being on the other side of this. So the fact that you get to ask me questions and I have to answer, whoa, scary. But hey, nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
I know. You're a man around town. You've hired, you've talked to our boss and your boss's bosses, and it's a pleasure to finally interview the interviewer.
Thank you. Yes, I have a Coffee with Mr. IoT show, which I really enjoy doing. I actually literally just came off another recording I did. So I gotta sort of like reel back. I don't get to ask questions. I have to listen to what you want to know. Gary.
So yeah, so the first question I'd have for you is, tell us your story. Tell us, how you got into the position you were in, and give us the backstory of Robert, aka Mr. IoT.
Okay, sorry. I have to answer the question with a question, which that's not fair. Are you asking about my story about the work Robert? Are you asking the story about the personal Robert? Both? I don't know. Do you want me to split this?
Let let's how about I don't know, let's do a little bit of half and half. So I guess what interests you about technology, and how did you get into the IoT space and eventually Deloitte?
Okay, so I ask you this question because I struggle with it, right? Because I have a really hard time separating out the personal from the business one. But for a very quick background, I'm originally from Austria. I came to the States in '95, so I've been here now for quite a long time. Um, and yeah, I have this thing in me where I can't quite decide what I do. When I was a kid, I would play hockey, go to hockey practice, and then shower, change, and head into the subway, run home in Vienna, and go and play in the orchestra. And so, you have the hockey team with the soccer, violin group, very different groups. And I think this is still to this day a bit of a pattern in me. So I graduated with a technical degree. I have a Master's of Science in Petroleum Engineering, but felt that I didn't really have enough business knowledge, if you wish. So instead of going and doing more school, I decided I wanted to get some practical knowledge. So I joined Procter & Gamble in finance. I was in finance, but quickly realized that as much as I was able to do spreadsheets just fine, I really enjoyed the system aspect of it much more. So came to the States as a consultant, started doing system consulting first in the ERP space for SAP. Well, not for SAP, but SAP as a platform, as an application, and then joined Deloitte. Was with Deloitte for almost 10 years, and then decided I wanted to change. I did all kind of different stuff. I did ERP, SAP, then I did what was then called e-business, which is really the coming of internet commerce, if you wish. Then outsourcing, when really doing offshore mixed shore delivery became big. We did some of that, and I was part of that. And then left Deloitte and actually took a sabbatical, did some work for a startup for a little bit, tech work again, and then sailed halfway around the world with my two boys and their mom. I really I felt like, hey, this is, I needed to get out of the American dream, which often called debt, and sold my house, bought a boat, moved the family on the boat. Everybody thought I'm crazy, and I probably am to a certain extent. Took my family, sailed with them halfway around the world, sold the boat in New Zealand, moved back to Europe, started working for Activision, and eventually was their CIO. So I have a very broad background when it comes to technology and IoT. Sorry, IT, I should say. And then a former colleague of mine from Deloitte asked me if I wanted to come back. And I said, really, me? In these colorful shirts? And they said, yeah, we want people like you. So I came back and started with another colleague of mine, the IoT practice, and have been in this space since then. So yeah, really enjoy I guess my tagline is I love putting technology to good use.
Mhm.
I'm passionate about technology, but really taking technology and putting it to good use, whatever is needed. So not technology for technology's sake, but taking technology and applying it to a business problem. So that was the long story. You got a bit of both. I don't know. Go and ask
That's
whatever you
awesome.
like.
Yeah, awesome, man. That sounds awesome. And I never knew you were from Austria. I got better questions to ask you about food from Austria, but I guess to ask you more pertinent questions, I guess through your career, you've been through quite a lot, right? Like you've done tech within Europe space, done tech here, you've traveled. I guess one of the things is what has changed throughout the years within tech that kind of stuck to you as wow, this is really going somewhere. This is something big. Or how has changed? A better question is how has technology changed throughout the years in your eyes? Is that a better one?
Both of them are good. It's sort of like what stuck with me around tech and why do I stick to tech, I guess is one question, and what has changed about tech is another question. Um, Maybe I'll start with what has changed about tech. Tech has really been different, and I think one of the things that really has changed. I mean, the big things have been pretty obvious, right? At first, it was sort of bringing all different systems together into one place, and we did that on servers, in server rooms, and then I think the biggest change that I've seen around the work I've done has been the cloud, and I think the cloud evolution has really had a huge impact on what we can do. I'm I've been super bullish about the cloud for a long time because um, it really has created this, I call it infinite compute capacity, right? I mean, really, it is finite if you really are look at it. But at the end of the day, for any sort of company that's in a regular size, unless you're like one of the top five companies, it is infinite, right? And it's just a matter of can I afford it? And even that, if you think about it, it's gotten so much cheaper over time. And then not only is it affordable and is it infinite, but it's gotten so much more secure than running the server like in the closet next door or downstairs, then eventually, and then into some data centers. There's just some security measures that we get now that are just really impressive. And now it's really about us when we write something on the code, what do we do with it and how secure is that and so forth. So I think cloud has been a huge change through my lifetime. I am really looking forward to what change we're going to see with Edge. I talk about Edge a lot, which is, I find it funny, right? So we had first compute was way far away in some unaffordable large computers that sat at some central data centers. Then it moved into the basement of people and we owned it, right? We had our own servers. Then we moved the servers to some other people to manage. And then now we sort of like moved it even further. We gave it up to own it, but we moved it up into the cloud. Well, that was a huge step from owning my data centers to giving it to someone else. I think we're going to have the next step, which is it's going to move really close to us, but in little teeny tiny chunks around us. And those little teeny tiny chunks around us, we call it either fog or edge, or people have different names for it. But there's going to be an interesting shift going on there. And again, it's going to be yet another one of those that's going to feel very uncomfortable at first because suddenly we have to really be really responsible for it, and we have to be worried what happens if someone takes it. And so there's a lot of stuff around that. So I'm curious about that. And then obviously AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. So like we have so much data that none of us humans can really sort through. So what are we going to do with that? I'm just really super excited and interested about it at a macro level. So that's just a little bit about that.
Yes, I'm ready to see what happens within AI and also the edge computing. Two very big industries to really boom, I feel, in the next 5 or 10 years.
And you
Yeah.
asked me this other question about what has stuck with me and or what has changed for me personally about it. I think there's always been a part of me that's been fascinated by trying out new things. And that's true for many things in life. I have a saying, I try everything once at least. But there's a part of me over time, I realized that I'm a little different than most people. And so my willingness to try stuff is probably bigger than others. And so I had to learn over time to accept that, right? And sort of deal with that just because I am happy to go way out there and try things out, that doesn't mean everybody is. And, if you think about it, that's true for me professionally in many ways, but it's also true for me personally. Who would take their 6 and 8-year-old on a sailboat and sail them thousands of miles offshore to other countries, right? Um, you know, Maybe that has been my biggest sales job ever, to sell that idea to my kid's mom. I still to this day look at that as my biggest sales accomplishment,
Yeah,
because that's a big leap of
huge.
faith. So yeah.
That's a big accomplishment to do as well. Because if you think about it, to just backpack, essentially backpack. I mean, you're on a boat and you have a place, right? But like essentially backpack and make your port your home. Like that's big, like Steve Jobs level. You.
Well, yeah, I guess, but it was an interesting endeavor. Um, I loved the process of getting there. I mean, before we did this, I hadn't sailed before, and so it was a process. And it's interesting because I find the skills I've learned through consulting, which is learning fast and assessing risks and creating a plan and then following through with the plan, that's really helped me in even these personal endeavors, right? Because at the end of the day, they say the biggest step you take is actually leaving. There's lots of people who talk about going sailing offshore,
Mhm.
and many work on their dock, on their boat for a long time, but actually to then leave, that's a big step. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm still pretty proud of it, to be honest. I kind of, I talk to my kids here and there about it. My youngest son came to me and said, "Dad, I want to get a boat. What do I do?" And I'm like, "Dude, you're 19. I'm sorry." And then I just had to reel back and realize he's my son after all. And so, crazy ideas come in the family. So,
Hey, he'll probably be taking a spaceship into the outer
ah,
sphere. You never know.
yeah, that sounds scary. I guess that's how my dad felt when I told him. So, but good idea. Well, I'm gonna actually not give him a copy of this recording so he doesn't do that. But anyhow, sounds good.
Next question I have: what are some of the recent breakthroughs within IoT that has occurred, and what have you pretty much seen happen either in the space that you've contributed to individually or as a whole?
Yeah, so the biggest breakthroughs, I think in general, what we're seeing is that sensors are getting smaller, are more pervasive, cheaper, and we're seeing more and more out there. I would say 4 or 5 years ago, um, I'd ask in a room, I'd ask the theoretical question, I think that all things will be connected. Who's with me? And I raised my hand, and it depends on the room, but about half of the people raised their hand. And then I
Mhm.
said, how many people think I'm crazy? And, but, people are shy about calling someone else crazy, but I don't know, 10% or so would raise their hand. And then the question would change to how expensive does the thing have to be before it gets connected? And then we'll get into the argument, oh, it has to be $100 or $500. And I think today we're getting down to where it's really much cheaper. So I think that's a big change. The
Okay.
other big change I'm seeing is around, batteries or the lack of thereof. So I'm showing you
Yes.
here by a company called Williard. It's a stamp size, paper thin computer without a battery. This
Wow.
has an ARM chip on it, has a Bluetooth modem, has memory on it. And what it does is it charges itself from RF energy from around us. So Wi-Fi, FM radio, all those kind of things,
That's
even
amazing.
other things. And so it charges itself up and then it says, boop, here I am, here's my secure ID, here's the temperature I'm at right now, and then goes back to sleep for whatever time, depending on environmental variables.
That's
And
amazing.
so we're gonna see more and more of these sensors. It's gonna become more and more pervasive, and I think that's gonna help us not just with track and trace, but it's gonna help us to live our lives in different ways. And last but not least, I'm really liking what I see around healthcare, in particular remote healthcare, In a way, the pandemic has kicked us in, excuse my French, in the rear. Um, Someone just asked me about this, right? Has your healthcare gotten better or worse? And I don't know if it's gotten better or worse, but I tell you that I don't go as much physically to the doctor, yet I feel like I have more doctor care. Just
Hmm.
calling my provider and them scheduling a meeting on the phone, having a video call. I get more healthcare than I did before. I believe it costs less and it's supported by what we do in IoT, and I'm really liking that. So.
Nice, nice. Another good question to segue into the next question. Um, how has COVID affected you in the business and personally? Oh,
Well, personally, it's affected me that I don't travel almost at all, almost none, right?
yeah.
And that's been weird at first. I mean, as a consultant, I would travel 3, 4 weeks out of the month all the
Hmm.
time. I'd be home maybe 3 days a week. And now I'm home all the time. And I'm quite happy. I wish I'd play those ukuleles a little more, but I don't. I got them because I thought that was going to be my COVID side gig, not gig, but side thing that I'm going to learn. And I started on YouTube a few lessons, and then eventually I kind of got sidetracked by other stuff. But I'm home way more. What has also happened personally, professionally, is that I have a lot more of these meetings. And I feel like instead of being on the phone with people where I don't get to see them, I get to actually look at them. And I really like that. And,
It's good.
yes, I do miss the personal interaction. I do miss this hanging out somewhere. But at the same token, in general, I find I have more of video contact, which I'm really appreciating. So I think that's a big change. I'm healthy. I am about to get my second vaccination next week because I was part of the Pfizer trial. So I got the placebo, and so they called me and told me, you got the placebo. Do you want the real thing? So um, I feel privileged that way. But I'm glad I'm healthy. My family has been healthy. I've been lucky that way, I guess. So the effect has been more in terms of changes around me
Mhm.
personally. On a professional level, significant changes. I have an airline client. Relationship has totally changed. They've totally scaled down their work. I have a hospitality client. Again, totally different. I mean, those two industries have been hit. Have been some of the hardest hit industries. So very
Yeah.
difficult. I work in smart factories. People wouldn't let us into factories for the longest time, and to this date, it's very difficult and different. So personally, lots of differences. Sorry, professionally, lots of differences.
Yeah.
Um, Otherwise, I feel we got a good kick in to changes that we've talked about for a while, but now have become absolutely critical. And I have to say, that's sort of the silver lining I see, I always try to find something good in the bad, and I think that's the
Yeah.
best I can
It's
find, that digital transformations have happened. So that's my take.
yeah. Yeah. I have two more questions and then we're set. The next question, what would you like to give professionals and enthusiasts as a tip on getting into the environment either of technology, IoT, or the Big Four consulting?
So I'd start with technology. Get your hands on it. I mean, you can today pretty much build anything and everything without almost in any investment. Yes, you can't scale it to millions of users, but gosh, you can get free accounts on pretty much all the cloud providers and develop whatever you like. Do that. Just get your hands into that. Um, if you want to go and build things, you can build things so inexpensive nowadays. Get a Raspberry Pi, get an Arduino, do some hardware stuff if you're into hardware, Uh, Tech today isn't as it was 10, 15, 20 years ago, where you had to have a lot of budget to start. I'd say get your hands dirty, get your hands in it, do some coding, specialize yourself in something that really you're passionate about. And I think that's a great start to get into that. And I think there's this aspect of remember that not everybody likes to talk tech, so find a way to explain what you do to people in a way that your partner understands, your parent understands, your parents
Mhm.
understand, your neighbor understands. And I believe that's a skill that's going to get you far, far down if you can talk both tech and business. So that's that. Consulting, I just think it's all about being curious. It's just the more curious you are, the better you're going to be at consulting. Um, and learning fast is a big thing, right? And at the same token, be able to say, I don't know. Some things, there's always questions I don't know the answer for, but I can always say, I don't know, but I'll get back to you. And I think often, even colleagues of mine, I find they hesitate to say, I don't know. And I think that's another skill to have, to know when not to know. And I don't know, man, there's so many things I don't know. It's ridiculous. The older I get, the more I realize what I don't know. So I don't know if that's worth anything, but yeah,
Yeah, no one can know everything, especially in technology. It's just so much,
exactly. Exactly.
Um, Final question, and it's a little bit of a fun one. When you're not traveling the world on your boat, what do you do for fun?
So I don't have a boat anymore. I don't travel on a boat anymore. Nowadays, what I do for fun is I fly. A year and a half ago, I decided, it's funny you asked me how I got into tech. When I was a kid, I loved flying model airplanes, right? I had like remotes, and I was
Oh,
like at first I didn't have a remote. I just built planes and tossed them around. And eventually I got remote control planes. And then I started flying like first person view, where you have like these really goofy goggles on your face and you
mhm.
look through a camera on the device. And I flew quadcopters around, like these little things with 4 motors on it. And they have, oh, I have them here. That's what I was playing with. They have like these, that's a computer again, right? They have
Wow.
these things on there that has uh, a processor, it also has memory, but it also has a gyroscope, and some of them have GPS on them. And they fly around, but you like pretend you're in them through these goggles. And 2 years ago, I thought, why do I keep like, flying in stuff or with stuff from down below? I want to be up there flying. So I started researching this, and so I got a pilot's license. And so
Nice.
now I fly around a little bit here and there, and I enjoy that. I love being out of the wind, go kiteboarding. And then, as I said, I have these things. And so then I sit there and I solder things on and like put motors on and build them. I don't have one here right now. I have them outside, but
That's awesome.
that's what I like doing, sort of like getting my hands dirty. As I do get my hands still dirty. They don't let me really do actual coding anymore,
Mhm.
because there's people who are way smarter than me, but and better and faster.
Breaking that.
But I still do get my hands dirty. So
That's awesome, man.
that's me.
Well, I appreciate you talking, for the brief time that we have. And, it's always a pleasure. I appreciate every talk that we have. And if anyone's listening to this recording, follow him, listen to his channel. He has a great channel where he talks to many tech professionals. He's just an awesome guy to listen to. So thank you for listening. And yeah, we will do this again. Thank you.
Thanks. We'll talk to you later. Bye.